Hi, I'm Maya Dikwa. I'm 29 years old, and today I found out I'm dead. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, officially, legally dead. I'm about to share something personal, but first, drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see how many hearts this story can touch. I was standing in my tiny kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil, when my phone buzzed once, sharp, urgent, like it knew. I picked it up lazily, thumb swiping without thinking. And then I saw the name, Mrs. Langford. She was our neighbor for 15 years, the kind old woman who gave me strawberry sweets at Christmas and winked when my parents weren't looking. I hadn't heard from her since the day I was erased. The message was a video. No words. Just a single line above it. "I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today." My hands began to shake. The kettle screamed behind me. I didn't move. I tapped the video. It was a church. One I knew. The one where they took me every Christmas Eve to sing hymns I never believed in. The camera panned forward slowly, like something out of a horror film. Two figures stood by a podium. My parents. My mother in black, dabbing at invisible tears with a lace handkerchief. My father with trembling fingers and a paper in his hand. Behind them, a casket. Next to it, framed in flowers, was my face. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. Then I heard it. His voice, broken in all the wrong places. She was always a troubled girl, but we loved her. I sank to the floor. The coffee spilled. My hands were ice. I was watching them bury me, and I was very much alive. He stood behind the pulpit like a statue someone had dressed in grief. The black suit was the same one he wore at company galas. His tie was perfectly knotted, his hair carefully combed. But his hands betrayed him, shaking just enough to make the paper in his fingers tremble like leaves in a dying wind. "My daughter," he began, voice low, almost reverent, "was a complicated soul." I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, the phone balanced against a mug, the video still playing. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. "She struggled," he continued, eyes never lifting from the script. "She wandered far from us, from herself. But we never stopped loving her, never stopped praying that she'd find her way back." My heart slammed against my ribs. It was surreal, like watching a stranger mourn a version of me I'd never met. Behind him, my mother sat with one gloved hand pressed to her chest, the other holding a lace-trimmed tissue. She nodded, right on cue, dabbing delicately at dry eyes, as if she could wipe away the years they spent pretending I didn't exist. And then he said it. "We did everything we could." I let out a bitter laugh. It echoed in my empty kitchen. Everything? They had done everything, except believe me, except love me when it counted, except protect me from their perfect daughter and her perfect lies. She died overseas, alone. No. I was here, watching, breathing, rage crawling like fire beneath my skin. He paused, let the silence sink in like truth. Then, with one deep breath, he closed the paper and said, "We pray her soul finds the peace she couldn't find in life." The screen went still for a moment. Then the camera panned slowly, my photo, blown up and framed in soft white flowers. The same photo they used when they deleted my life from every record, every database, every conversation. My father sat down. The church applauded softly, as if grief deserved applause. I stared at the screen long after the sound faded. My father hadn't stumbled once. His voice never cracked. His eyes never searched the crowd for answers. It was perfect. Too perfect. It wasn't grief, it was a performance. And I'd just watched my own death, written, directed, and delivered by the people who were supposed to love me. There it was. Framed in ivory and wrapped in lilies, the photo I hadn't seen in years. My photo, rested on an easel beside a polished mahogany casket. My smile was soft, eyes open wide like I still trusted the world. I remembered that day. I was 23. A friend had taken it at the beach, just before the waves dragged our shoes into the sea. I had sand in my hair. I was laughing. I was alive. And now it was being used to mourn me. The casket was closed, draped in white cloth and surrounded by candles. White roses spilled across the altar. Someone had even placed a teddy bear at the base, like I was a lost child, not a grown woman sitting in her apartment with shaking hands and a pounding heart. My name was printed in gold beneath the frame. Maya Dikwa, beloved daughter, gone too soon. I stared at it, waiting to wake up, waiting for someone, anyone, to scream that it was a mistake, that I was watching someone else's funeral, someone who only looked like me. But the truth hung heavy in the silence. They hadn't just disowned me. They hadn't just pushed me out of their lives. They buried me. And the world came to watch. The camera swept the front rows. Familiar faces blurred into shadows. Aunts, cousins, neighbors, even my old piano teacher, all dressed in black, all holding tissues to their faces like they were mourning something real. No one had called. No one had checked. No one had wondered if the girl in the casket was actually dead, because they wanted me to be. My throat burned. My chest rose and fell too fast. I tried to pause the video, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. So I just watched. Watched them pretend I'd vanished. Watched them light candles for a ghost they helped create. Behind the casket, a stained glass window bathed the altar in pale, holy light. It glinted off the glass frame of my photo, like it was proud of what it had become. A lie polished until it gleamed. I had always imagined dying would feel like something. A final breath, a fading heartbeat, a descent into silence. But this was worse. This was being rewritten, erased, replaced. I wasn't grieving. I was burning. The video ended, but I didn't move. I stared at the frozen frame, my face surrounded by flowers I'd never smell, mourners I never invited, and a coffin that never held me. And I whispered into the quiet, "You buried the wrong girl." The church in the video hadn't changed. Same dark wood beams, same heavy chandeliers that buzzed faintly with old electricity. Watching it pulled me backward, like being yanked underwater by a current I'd pretended was gone. I remembered sitting in the second pew on Christmas Eve, feet too short to touch the floor, hands folded in my lap like I'd been taught. The smell of pine and cold stone, the way my mother's perfume clung too sweet and too tight. She'd smoothed down my hair without looking at me, her other hand gripping my sister's with warmth she never saved for me. Elena always sat in the middle, between them, shining. Even as a child, she knew how to steal the spotlight, how to cry just loud enough to earn kisses, how to lie with her whole face and still be called an angel. She was golden, effortless, adored. I was quieter, hungrier, always reaching for something I couldn't name. Once I spilled wax from a candle onto my white tights. I was 6. My mother yanked me out of the pew with a grip like iron, hissing between her teeth, "You embarrass us. Why can't you be more like her?" I stood outside in the cold for the rest of the service, fingers numb, tears stinging my cheeks. She didn't come to get me until the final hymn. That moment never left me, like a splinter buried too deep to remove. It wasn't always cruel. That's the part that still haunts me. Sometimes there were slivers of softness, my father carrying me to bed after I'd fallen asleep on the couch, my mother braiding my hair while humming tunelessly. But even those memories feel cold now, like light bouncing off frost. Distant, untouchable. I think I kept trying because I believed if I was good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they'd see me. That they'd remember I was theirs. That love wasn't a reward, but a right. Instead, I became the easy one to blame. The background noise to their perfect picture. When the business fell apart and money went missing, they didn't hesitate. My father couldn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "You humiliated us. You're no longer our daughter." And that was that. A childhood of standing outside the circle, of earning nothing but silence, had prepared me for exile. But not for erasure. Not for a world where I was framed in flowers and mourned like a shameful secret. Now, watching that same stained glass flicker on the screen, I realized something brutal. They hadn't lost me. They never really had me. And this funeral wasn't for a daughter. It was for a stranger they never tried to know. It started with numbers, tiny, inconsistent numbers in the bookkeeping sheets. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a misplaced decimal, a forgotten entry. I was 26, running the admin side of the family business, head buried in spreadsheets and endless bank statements. I lived in the quiet, in facts and formulas. Elena lived in flashes. Designer heels, spontaneous trips, champagne and crystal flutes she never paid for. But when I confronted her, she laughed. "You're imagining things," she said, rolling her eyes like I was some jealous, bitter spinster. "Do you even know what you're looking at?" Yes, I did. Nearly 80,000 euros, siphoned slowly from our business account over the course of a year. Lavish purchases hidden under vague invoice codes. Money meant for salaries, taxes, stability, gone. I printed everything, brought it to our parents, thinking surely, the truth would matter. That when faced with hard proof, they would finally see me, hear me, believe me. They didn't even read it. Elena stood behind me in the kitchen, arms crossed, lips trembling in that practiced way she'd mastered by 12. "She's trying to ruin me," she whispered. "She's jealous." My mother didn't hesitate. "Better one ruined daughter than two." I couldn't breathe. I turned to my father, waiting for anything. Doubt, hesitation, a flicker of love. He didn't look up. "You humiliated us," he said. "You're no longer our daughter." It happened in under 2 minutes. My whole life pulled out from under me like a rug soaked in gasoline. By morning, my keys didn't fit. My bank account was locked. My name, gone from the website, the registry, the house alarm. They chose her. And I realized they always had. Elena didn't cry when I left. She stood at the top of the stairs with a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, scrolling. Like it was just another Tuesday. Like I hadn't just lost everything because she wanted another handbag. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I walked out with a backpack and a coat that wasn't warm enough. I slept in a hostel that night, then another. Then I stopped telling people who I was at all. I carried that silence like a scar across every city I moved to. I buried the truth beneath jobs, leases, border crossings. But betrayal has a way of staying with you. It burns behind the eyes when you least expect it, and it never stops whispering. "She stole your life, and they let her." It started with whispers. A few missing receipts, a payment that bounced when it shouldn't have. I was the one who noticed it. Of course I was. I did the books, balanced the accounts, knew every cent like it was a heartbeat. I brought it up gently, thought maybe our accountant missed something. He smiled tightly and said he'd double-check. Then a week passed. 2, and suddenly, eyes started turning. Not to Elena, to me. "You've been stressed," my mother said over dinner, slicing into a steak she hadn't paid for. "Are you sure you're not misreading the numbers?" Elena didn't say anything at first, just sat there with her nails freshly done and a wine glass tilted in her perfect little hand. But then she chimed in, voice soft, concerned. "You've made mistakes before, Maya. Remember that time you forgot the payroll tax?" I hadn't. That had been her, too. It spread quickly after that. The story twisted behind my back while I was still trying to breathe. Clients whispered. Staff went quiet when I entered the room. My father stopped inviting me to meetings. I knew something was coming. I could feel it in the silence, in the way doors started closing before I even reached them. Then came the accusation. Not in private, not with grace. They sat me down in the boardroom with the blinds drawn and their disappointment preloaded. My father held the printed statements like they were a verdict. €80,000, he said flatly. Gone. I tried to speak, to show them the trail, the mismatched invoices, the luxury store codes, the flights Elena took under the company name. But the moment I opened my mouth, my mother stood. "You've embarrassed this family enough," she said, her voice shaking with something close to disgust. "Don't make it worse." I looked at Elena. She didn't even flinch, just crossed her legs slowly and tilted her head like this bored her. As if throwing me under the bus was nothing new, just another performance, and I was the opening act. That night, they made it official, froze my access, sent an internal memo. I was let go due to ethical concerns. No investigation, no police, just silence and shame. They didn't want the truth. They wanted it to go away, and I was easier to discard than their golden child. In the weeks that followed, no one returned my messages. My email was locked. Friends stopped calling. Elena moved into a new flat. My parents vacationed in Portugal. And I disappeared. A daughter turned scapegoat. Not because I failed, but because I was convenient. Because loyalty in our family only ran as deep as denial would allow. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was just a silence I couldn't explain. Calls that rang unanswered, messages that sat unread. My mother used to respond within minutes, always sharp, always controlling. Then suddenly, nothing. My father's voice vanished from my voicemail like it had never been there. I thought it was shock, shame, maybe even fear. I was wrong. They hadn't just disowned me, they had begun to erase me. The first real blow came when I tried to access my bank account. Declined. Inactive, they said. I stood at the ATM like a stranger in my own life, re-entering my PIN with shaking hands, hoping the machine would change its mind. But it didn't, because the account had been closed. Then my work email was deactivated. No warning, no explanation, just gone. I contacted IT. They told me my credentials were no longer valid. I asked why. They said my father had handled it. I called the office. The receptionist, who had known me since I was a teenager, answered in a clipped tone. "There's no one here by that name," she said, and hung up. That night, I went home to find my name scraped from the mailbox, my key no longer fitting in the front door. My mother's voice answered from inside when I knocked, low, measured. "I told you not to come back." "But I live here," I whispered. "Not anymore." The hallway light above me flickered. I stood there for 10 minutes, hoping she'd open the door, look me in the eye, admit she was bluffing. She never did. After that, it was like falling through cracks no one would acknowledge. People who once hugged me at family dinners now crossed the street when they saw me. Friends stopped replying. My old piano teacher, Mrs. Ten Boom, who used to send me birthday cards every year without fail, sent nothing. I reached out to my aunt. "I don't want to take sides," she said, "but maybe it's better this way." Better for who? I tried writing letters, real ones. I folded my handwriting into envelopes like apologies, even though I had nothing to be sorry for. No one wrote back. It was worse than death. At least death earns mourning, memory, myth. This was absence, chosen absence, as if I'd never existed, as if I'd been a fever dream they could now forget. No one said my name. No one remembered my story. They didn't just shut the door. They sealed it. And somewhere, deep inside the silence, I began to believe them. That maybe I really was the problem. The shame. The mistake worth erasing. Until the day I saw the video. And everything they buried came roaring back. I didn't plan to disappear. It just happened piece by piece, like dust settling in corners no one bothers to sweep. After everything collapsed, after the lies and the cold stares and the slammed doors, I packed a suitcase without looking back. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, my passport, a notebook, and the last fragments of my name. I landed in a city where no one knew me, where the language curled differently in my mouth and the streets had no memory. It rained a lot, the kind that seeps into your shoes and bones and thoughts. I found a job in a cafe tucked between two crumbling bookshops, a place that smelled like burnt espresso and wet stone. No one asked questions. They paid in cash. I scrubbed dishes, cleared tables, burned my fingertips on silver milk pitchers. It didn't matter. I liked the noise, the hum of strangers' conversations, the clatter of cups that didn't belong to me. It kept the silence out. At night I walked, blocks and blocks until my legs ached and the city blurred. I learned the back streets, the quiet parks, the corner shop that sold expired tea biscuits for half price. I rented a room above a laundromat, small enough to hear the machines whirring through the floor. My name wasn't on the lease. No one cared. I stopped using social media, deleted my old accounts, got a new number with a SIM card from a vending machine. I let go of birthdays, holidays, time zones. I didn't speak Dutch unless I had to. When people asked my name, I lied. Something generic, something forgettable. That's what I wanted, to be unremarkable, invisible, safe. But silence is a strange kind of mirror. You start seeing things in it. Not memories exactly, but shapes. My mother's voice telling me to sit up straighter. My father's cough before he'd lie. Elena's laugh echoing from another room, always louder than it needed to be. I replayed their words in my head like old tapes, worn and warped. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. Trauma has a rhythm. It hums when everything else goes quiet. And still, part of me hoped that maybe someone would look, that maybe one day I'd get a message, a knock, a single word. Come home. But no one did. Not once. Eventually, I stopped waiting. I became the girl who didn't ask, didn't speak unless spoken to. The girl who smiled just enough to pass. I didn't take photos. I didn't write my real name on any form. I stopped existing in the places they could find me. But I was alive, barely, quietly, and no one noticed. It started with a login error. Just a red banner at the top of the screen. This account no longer exists. I blinked, refreshed the page, tried again. Same message. I checked the password twice, then again, typing slowly like I was defusing a bomb. Still nothing. It was the email I'd used since I was 16. The one tied to every memory, every job, every version of me I'd tried to hold on to. I hadn't used it in a while, but I couldn't let it go. It was mine. A small thread back to who I was before everything unraveled. So I clicked the help link, filled in the form, waited. A day passed, then 2. Then I got the reply. This account has been permanently deactivated due to a report of user decease. Please contact us with legal documentation if this is in error. I read it 3 times before I felt it. A slow, cold burn spreading through my chest. Deceased. Not inactive. Not dormant. Dead. I tried to laugh, but it caught in my throat. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, unsure of what to type. How do you convince a company's faceless bot that you're still breathing? That you exist? My heart was pounding so hard it made the silence ring. I stared at the screen, the words blurring, and for a moment it didn't feel digital at all. It felt personal, violent, like someone had reached through the wires and cut the final thread. They hadn't just forgotten me. They had reported me dead. I pictured it, the form filled out by shaking hands or calm ones, a checkbox ticked, a story told. Overseas accident. No remains. Closed casket. I could see it all too clearly. The lies printed in ink, filed in systems I'd never access. The truth overwritten like it was a typo. They didn't just erase me from the family, they scrubbed me from the world. I sat there, staring at my own absence, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel numb. I felt seen, not as a daughter, not as a sister, but as a threat. Someone who had to be deleted to protect the version of the story they wanted to sell. And somewhere, deep in that quiet room above the laundromat, I whispered it out loud. You killed me. Not with a weapon, not with poison, but with paperwork. And the worst part? It almost worked. I typed my name slowly, one letter at a time, as if saying it too fast might wake something I wasn't ready to face. Maya Dekwa. I hit enter, the screen loaded, a spinning circle blinked, then stilled. There it was. Maya Dekwa. Date of death, July 16th. Cause, road traffic incident. Status, deceased. Certificate ID, ARF 91327. I stared at it. My own name. Stamped, filed, finalized. The language was cold, bureaucratic, like I was an invoice someone had finally settled. I scrolled down. There were no notes, no photos, just facts. Cold ones. A name, a date, a lie wrapped in official formatting. I clicked download. The PDF opened without hesitation, like it had been waiting for me. The death certificate had my full name, my date of birth, the town I grew up in. Every detail correct, except the most important one. I was alive, breathing, heart racing, hands trembling over a mouse pad that suddenly felt too smooth, too real. They hadn't guessed. They hadn't assumed. They'd filed it. Someone, probably my father, had walked into an office, looked a clerk in the eye and lied, had signed my death into law, and no one questioned it. Because why would they? Families bury their children all the time. But I wasn't in the ground. I printed it out, held the sheet between my fingers like it might dissolve. It didn't. The paper was thick, cream-colored, stamped with an official seal. I could smell the toner. My name looked so final in ink, like a period at the end of a sentence I hadn't finished writing. And suddenly I was back in that church. The casket, the candles, the photo they framed without asking, my mother's lace gloves, Elena's pearls, all of it feeding the same fiction. She's gone. Let her rest. But I hadn't rested in years. I set the paper on the table and stared at it like it might blink. I half expected the text to fade, the words to rearrange themselves into a joke or a test, but it didn't change. It just sat there. Proof that somewhere, officially, legally, I didn't exist anymore. I wasn't just forgotten, I was declared dead, and it wasn't a clerical error, it was a cover-up. But of what? That was the moment something inside me hardened. Whatever grief or shame I'd carried for years began to burn into something colder, sharper. I wasn't broken. I wasn't lost. I was buried alive. And now I was digging myself out. I started with Aunt Rachel. She used to sneak me chocolate coins at Christmas, slip them into my coat pocket with a wink when my mother wasn't looking. I remembered thinking she was the only adult in the family who really saw me. So I called her first, heart pounding, thumb hovering over the green icon like it might bite me. She answered on the second ring. Hello? Her voice was sharp, older somehow, but familiar. I swallowed. Aunt Rachel, I whispered. It's me. It's Maya. Silence. Then the line went dead. I blinked at my phone, called again. Blocked. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. I tried to make it logical. Maybe she thought it was a scam. Maybe she didn't hear me. But the truth was simpler. She hung up. She knew it was me. And she hung up anyway. I moved down the list. Cousins, family friends, people who once posted hearts on my birthday photos. One replied with a thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. Another texted back, "Is this some kind of sick joke?" Even my godmother left me on read. It didn't make sense. I was me. My voice hadn't changed. My number was different, yes, but my words weren't. My memories were real. My pain was real. I typed out paragraphs, gentle, pleading, desperate. I attached photos, shared stories only someone in the family could know. Still nothing. I felt like I was screaming into a soundproof room. I began to wonder if they actually believed I had died, or if it was just easier to keep pretending. But then, just when I was about to give up, One message lit up my screen. Maya? It was Sam, my youngest cousin. He used to follow me around with sticky fingers and endless questions. I hadn't seen him since he was 12. Now he was 17. Taller, surer, but still him. Are you really alive? Yes, I typed. I need to know what they told everyone. His typing bubble blinked for what felt like hours. Then it came. They said you died in a car crash, abroad, closed casket. Said there wasn't much left. I stopped breathing. Sam added, I asked questions, but they shut me down. Said it was too painful. Said you wanted to be left alone. I stared at the screen, a chill creeping up my spine. It wasn't just that they hadn't tried to find me. They had built a story, crafted it, sold it. And no one, not even the people who once hugged me, laughed with me, said they loved me, had questioned it. I wasn't just silenced. I was rewritten. Sam was the last person I expected. He used to trail behind me at family parties with chocolate on his hands and questions spilling out of his mouth faster than he could think. I remembered tying his shoelaces at his 7th birthday and promising to teach him how to whistle. He had the kind of heart you prayed wouldn't get crushed by our family. And somehow, a decade later, he was the only one who didn't hang up. His reply had come late at night, after hours of silence, after my fingers had gone numb from typing and deleting messages no one would read. Just 3 words. Is it really you? I didn't know what to say at first. I wanted to cry, scream, say yes 1,000 times, but all I typed was, yeah, it's me. He called immediately. I almost didn't answer. My hands were shaking. My heart felt like it was trying to crawl out of my chest, but I picked up. Maya? His voice cracked halfway through the word. Hi, Sammy. A beat of silence, then a gasp, soft and breathless. They said you died. I closed my eyes. I know. They said it happened overseas. A car accident. That you were traveling alone. They told everyone it was too late to bring you back. That there was nothing left. Closed casket. His voice trembled. They even had a service. Elena read a poem. My stomach turned. I'm so sorry, he whispered. It wasn't true, I said. None of it. He didn't ask for proof, didn't question my voice or accuse me of playing a cruel joke. He just believed me. And that was what broke me most. That belief, quiet and immediate, after all the noise and rejection. I asked questions, he said. They got angry, said you wanted to be forgotten, that it was your wish. But it didn't make sense. You wouldn't just disappear. I didn't, I said. They made me. Sam exhaled sharply, like he'd been holding his breath for 3 years. They lied to everyone. I think they needed me gone. Elena, she got everything after. The business, the money, even my trust fund. He was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, what are you going to do? I looked out the window at the city lights, so bright, so distant. I don't know yet, but I'm not staying buried. You shouldn't have to, he said. It was a small thing, a voice on the other end of the line, but it felt like a hand reaching through the dark, the first one that hadn't let go. He believed me, and that meant I wasn't invisible anymore. They told them I died in a car crash, overseas, alone, no witnesses, no survivors. That's what Sam said. That's what everyone was told. I kept repeating the words in my head, trying to make them sound plausible, but they never did. I'd never even owned a car. The closest I'd come to driving abroad was renting a bike in Copenhagen. But to the rest of the world, my family, their friends, the staff from the old company, I was gone in a twisted wreck on some unnamed foreign road. My mother said the crash was devastating, that there wasn't much left, that it was a mercy they couldn't bring me home. Closed casket, of course. Elena said I was chasing freedom when it happened, like it was romantic, like I was some tragic, wandering spirit who burned too bright to last. I wonder how she kept her voice from cracking when she told them I'd been cremated, how she made her eyes shine just enough when she described the last message I supposedly sent. There was no last message. No accident, no crash, only silence, engineered, rehearsed, deliberate. They even gave me a date. July 16th. Like I just expired one morning. Like the world paused and gasped and moved on without blinking. But I didn't die that day. I was in Lisbon, serving cappuccinos and sweeping crumbs into a dustpan. I called in sick with a sore throat and watched a movie in bed. That night I made pasta and read a book I never finished. That was my death day, apparently, a Tuesday, completely unremarkable. I found out later that they'd waited 6 weeks to tell anyone. Enough time for the paperwork to be filed, the certificate to be processed, the story to be shaped into something watertight. They didn't just grieve, they curated, crafted, directed. By the time the story reached the edges of the family tree, I was a memory wrapped in tragedy, and no one questioned it. Not even the ones who knew I hated driving, not the ones who had my email, my address, my old number. They just accepted it. I guess it was easier to believe I was dead than to admit what they'd done to me. I thought about all the times I'd stood in the shadows, waiting for someone to call, hoping someone would say, "That doesn't sound like Maya." But no one ever did, because the official story was simple, tragic, convenient. And dead girls don't talk. Not until now. I started with the shoebox under my bed, the one I hadn't opened in over a year. Inside were crumpled receipts, folded contracts, a few old plane tickets, and the rental agreement from the flat in Lisbon where the shower never worked properly. I dumped everything onto the floor. My fingers moved faster than my thoughts. The panic was gone now, replaced by something colder, steadier. They had erased me. I was going to prove I existed. I dug through drawers, old wallets, even the lining of my coat. Found my passport tucked behind a stack of expired Metro cards, pages stamped with customs ink from Denmark, France, Portugal. I laid it all out on the kitchen table, a paper trail, messy and stubborn. I was never great at organizing, but I kept everything. That had to count for something. Next, I logged into my old payroll accounts, the ones from the cafe in Lisbon, the temp agency in Utrecht, the bookstore in Marseille. I downloaded contracts, screenshots of tax forms, anything with my name on it. I didn't even cry when I saw them, not because I wasn't hurting, but because rage had hollowed me out. They said I was dead. But here I was, filing taxes. I found my lease agreements. The one from Amsterdam still had the ink smudged from when I signed it in the rain. I'd been so proud then. That tiny room with the squeaky window felt like a kingdom. Proof that I'd built something, survived something, and now that proof would save me. I scanned everything, labeled folders, created backups of backups. Each file was a matchstick against the lie they'd built. And the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't some tragic misunderstanding. It was a fabrication. Calculated, intentional. You don't just accidentally file a death certificate. You don't fake cause of death, write a eulogy, hold a service, unless you want the world to believe the lie more than the person behind it. They needed me gone. I didn't know why, not yet. But I knew one thing. I was never meant to find my way back. But I had. And now I held the truth in my hands, signed, sealed, time-stamped. I looked at the stack of documents. My name was everywhere, over and over again, like a heartbeat. I wasn't dead. I was undeniable. I wasn't looking for her. I didn't even mean to type her name. But my fingers moved before my mind caught up, and suddenly I was staring at her profile. Elena. Dekwa. Glowing on the screen like it hadn't been set to private in years. She'd gone public again. And there it was, a glittering carousel of wedding photos, curated and perfect. White roses, champagne fountains, strings of fairy lights tangled in olive trees. Every image glowed with that sickening kind of joy people fake for followers. Her dress was a fitted cloud, her makeup flawless, her smile wide, triumphant, untouched. The caption read, "The best day of my life, to love, laughter, and forever." I didn't feel my hands curl until I saw the first photo of the guests. Aunt Rachel in a powder blue dress, glass raised, my cousins clinking flutes. Even Great-Uncle Theo, who hadn't left Switzerland in a decade, stood beaming like someone had resurrected his youth. Everyone was there. Everyone but me. No mention, no framed photo. Not even a thrown-off, "We wish Maya could be here." Because in their story, I wasn't missing. I was dead. I swiped through the album like picking at a wound. The dance, the speeches, the glittering table settings. And then I saw it. One photo, blurry but damning. Her husband stood mid-toast, and next to him, holding a wine glass, was my father, grinning. The caption beneath it, "To the one daughter who always made us proud." My breath caught, my eyes blurred. There it was, the switch. Not just forgotten. Replaced. I wasn't the tragic loss anymore. I was the stepping stone, the cleanup job, the erased mistake that made room for her to shine without shadow. She wore my pearls, the ones my grandmother left me. I recognized them instantly. I'd kept them in a velvet box since I was 17, until I left in a hurry and didn't get to pack them. I thought maybe they were still in the house gathering dust. Turns out they were perfect for Elena's wedding day. I felt something crack open inside me, slow and silent. This wasn't grief. This was theft. She didn't just take my future, she wore it, with a veil, and smiled. It didn't hit me all at once. It crept in, slow and cruel, like water seeping through cracks you didn't know were there. One photo, one caption, one fake eulogy. And suddenly, I saw it. I hadn't just been disowned, I had been replaced. Elena wore the smile they used to beg me for at family dinners. She stood at the center of every frame like a sun they'd always orbited, and no one looked like they missed me. No one held a pause for the daughter who should have been standing beside them. They weren't grieving. They were relieved. Every toast, every smile, every filtered memory on that screen screamed the same message. This version of the family worked better without me. Cleaner, sharper, easier to photograph. I was the ghost they'd buried to make room for the performance, and she played her part perfectly. The pearls, the praise, the subtle glances to our father, like they shared a secret. Maybe they did. Maybe they all did. I went back to the beginning of her feed, scrolled slowly. The timeline told a story. Not one I recognized, but one she'd shaped carefully. The career wins, the engagement, the quiet time after the loss. She milked my death like it gave her depth, like it made her shine brighter to mourn someone she never really loved. And the comments. God, the comments. Your strength is inspiring. Your family must be so proud. Maya would be smiling down on you. I nearly threw the phone across the room. I wasn't smiling, I was shaking. I had spent years blaming myself, wondering if I had said the wrong thing, made too much noise, not been worth the effort. But this wasn't abandonment, it was strategy. A clean break, a sacrifice. They didn't just cast me out. They built something better in the space where I used to be. And they filled it with someone easier to love. Someone who didn't ask questions. Someone who could lie with grace and lace and just enough mascara to draw sympathy. I thought exile was the worst thing they could do. I was wrong. Replacement is quieter, sharper. It erases you with applause, and it leaves you watching from behind glass, screaming into silence while someone else lives the life they stole. But I wasn't staying quiet anymore. If they wanted a ghost, they were about to get one. I don't know what I expected to find when I typed in the name of our family's holding company. Maybe just confirmation that it still existed, that they were still operating, still pretending everything was fine. But I wasn't prepared for what I saw. a change in ownership. 6 months after my death, the trust in my name had been quietly dissolved. The funds, my funds, left to me by my grandparents, had been reassigned. The paperwork was efficient, cold, precise. Just a few clicks, and the name on the account wasn't mine anymore. It was hers, Elena Dequa. My name had been there since I was 11. It was supposed to be locked until I turned 30. A safety net, my grandmother said, for when you're ready to build something real. She'd always said it with a softness she never used around anyone else. It was the only thing that was truly mine, not given by my parents, not earned by surviving, just entrusted. And now it was gone, transferred without my consent, without a court fight, without a whisper. Because legally I was no one. Just a line on a death certificate and a candle on an altar. I scrolled through the public ledger, numb, my breath shallow. The amount was there, logged like a wound in numbers, $132,000. Gone. Reallocated to Elena's account the same month she posted about her new car, the same month she vacationed in Greece, the same month she smiled in a yacht selfie with the caption, "Healing looks good on me." I felt like vomiting. They hadn't just stolen my name, my memory, my place, they cashed me out. I imagined her signing the transfer papers, her signature looping perfectly, unbothered. Did she hesitate at all? Did she blink when she saw my name removed from the line? Or did it feel like justice to her? Like reward? I called the bank, gave my name. The woman on the line hesitated, then asked if I was calling on behalf of the estate. "No," I said. "I am the estate." She stammered, said she'd have to escalate the request. I didn't wait. I hung up. I already knew the truth. They declared me dead to take what was mine, and Elena didn't just inherit the money. She inherited me, the good daughter, the loyal one, the one who stayed. She got it all, the life, the love, the lie. But what she didn't get, what none of them saw coming, was this. The dead don't stay quiet forever. The law office smelled like old paper and polished wood, quiet, sterile, almost too calm for what I carried in my hands. I waited in the small reception area, fingers clenched around a folder stuffed with proof. Passport stamps, employment contracts, tax filings, lease agreements. The evidence of a life someone else had declared finished. When the door opened and the young lawyer called my name, I rose without speaking. I didn't trust my voice yet, not with this fire still tightening my chest. His name was Willem, late 30s, cautious eyes, sleeves rolled up like he wanted to look approachable but still in control. He offered me coffee. I declined. "I've read your email," he said carefully as he sat down. "But I need to hear it from you. What exactly do you believe has happened?" I opened the folder and slid the death certificate across the desk. "I don't believe it," I said. "It happened. My parents filed this." He stared at the document, his brows lifted, just slightly. "And you're Maya Dequa?" I pulled out my passport, laid it beside the certificate. Then my tax returns. A rental contract, a paycheck stub. Every item like a drumbeat. I exist, I exist, I exist. His eyes flicked between them, face unreadable. Then he exhaled slowly. "You're challenging your own death." "I'm not challenging anything," I said. "I'm undoing it." He sat back, nodding slowly. "We'll need to file a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It's not common, but it's not impossible. And we'll have to pursue criminal charges for fraud and identity misuse, possibly financial theft depending on what was transferred after your passing." $132,000, I said coldly. "My inheritance." He didn't blink, just reached for a pen and wrote it down. "This won't be quick," he warned. "You'll need to testify. Publicly. People will ask why you stayed silent this long." I looked him dead in the eye. Because I didn't know I was dead until I saw my own funeral. He nodded once, sharper this time. Understood. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of legal terms and formalities. But when I left the office, the air outside felt different. Heavier, but cleaner somehow. Like I had stepped out from under something I hadn't even known was pressing me down. For the first time in years, my name was written beside the word alive. And soon it would be written everywhere. The message came without a name. Just a single line. No greeting, no signature, no explanation. They're holding a memorial for you next Sunday. St. Albans. I stared at it for a long time, the words glowing cold and clinical on my screen. My fingers hovered, wanting to respond. But to what? To who? The number was unknown. No photo, no history. Like the message had slipped through some crack between worlds. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake, a cruel joke. But no one outside my family knew what had happened, and only someone inside it would use that church. St. Albans, the same place they filmed the first funeral. My funeral, the one I watched from my kitchen floor. A second one now, a memorial. Had they missed the performance that badly? Were the crocodile tears not enough the first time? I read the message again. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I tried to imagine them preparing for it, choosing flowers, printing programs, writing new lies to recite like prayers. Would they show the same photo? The one of me laughing on the beach, sunlight tangled in my hair? Would they talk about how deeply I was missed, how tragic it all was, while sipping wine and whispering about how at least Elena was doing well? My throat burned. They were going to mourn me. Again. As if I were a story to be retold and revised until it suited them. As if I weren't sitting in my apartment, heart beating like war drums, watching them stretch my death into another stage production. But this time, I wasn't just a ghost behind glass. This time, I would be there. Not hiding in the shadows. Not silent. Not invisible. I pulled the message up one last time, then deleted it. I didn't need more words. I needed a plan, because if they wanted a second act, I was ready to give them the ending they never saw coming. St. Albans had never looked so full. Cars lined the street like a parade of grief. People filed into the church in black coats and quiet shoes, their voices hushed, their hands clutching tissues they might not need. The bell above the entrance tolled once, low and slow, like a warning no one understood. I stood across the street, hidden beneath a long black coat and oversized sunglasses, the hood of my sweater pulled low, unrecognizable, invisible. My breath misted in the morning air, but inside I burned. It felt surreal, watching my own death unfold again. As if time had looped, but this time I was ready. This time I wasn't paralyzed. I wasn't gasping for answers. I was watching. Not as a ghost, as the reckoning. A woman passed me on her way in, my old violin teacher. She paused at the door, adjusted the strap on her handbag, then stepped through like she was entering a theater. The show was about to begin. Through the stained glass windows, I saw the flicker of candlelight, heard the low moan of the organ warming up, that same dreadful, syrupy hymn they'd played the first time. I imagined the program printed on cream cardstock, my name printed at the top, a short lie beneath, forever in our hearts. Inside, they were preparing to weep for me. Outside, I was very much alive. I waited until the last few people had gone in before I crossed the street. My boots struck the pavement with slow, steady rhythm. My fingers curled into fists inside my sleeves. I didn't hesitate at the steps, didn't pause at the heavy oak doors. I stood just to the side, half shielded by the stone archway, and listened. Voices echoed inside, my father's deep, measured tone, my mother's soft, practiced sobs. I caught Elena's laugh, quickly stifled, and it felt like a slap. I peeked inside, just far enough to see the front rows. They had used the same photo, the one from the beach. My smile frozen forever under stained glass and sympathy. Rows of mourners sat with heads bowed, eyes glassy, expressions carved out of convenience. The same people who hadn't called, who hadn't asked. And in that moment, I realized something strange. They didn't come for me. They came for themselves, to feel noble, sad, righteous, to say goodbye to a version of me they helped erase. I stepped back into the shadow of the doorway. For now, let them cry, let them mourn, let them believe the show was safe. The curtain hadn't lifted yet, but it would, soon. "Let us now stand," the priest said, voice echoing through the vaulted ceiling, "for a moment of silence in remembrance of Maya Dekwa." Every person in the church rose, hands folded, heads bowed, eyes shut. The candles flickered against the stained glass. The organ faded into nothing. The air stilled, and I stepped through the doors. The sound was sharp, oak groaning against stone as I pushed them open. Light poured in behind me, flooding the aisle in pale white. For a moment, I thought no one noticed. Then the whispers began. A breath, a murmur, a soft gasp, followed by a louder one. Someone turned, then another, like a wave crashing through pews. Is that... It can't be. My heels clicked against the marble, slow and deliberate, each step a beat against the coffin they tried to lock me in. I walked with my chin high, sunglasses still on, coat brushing the back of my calves like wings made of ash. Eyes found me. Dozens. Then all of them. The moment held, stretched, and then snapped. My mother collapsed with a sharp, practiced gasp, a lace-gloved hand flying to her mouth as she crumpled sideways into my father's arms. He caught her, but didn't look away from me. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Just breath. Elena stood frozen beside the altar, lips parted, pearl necklace twisted in her fist. Her knuckles white, her wineglass trembled. It tilted, fell, shattered on the floor. I didn't flinch. I kept walking. Rows of mourners stood like statues, silent, still, terrified. No one moved. No one sat. No one breathed. It was like they thought they were seeing a ghost. Maybe they were. Maybe I was a ghost, of the daughter they buried, of the truth they tried to forget. I reached the front of the church and stopped beneath my own portrait, the one where I looked happy, whole, alive. The lie they loved best. I took off my sunglasses. My eyes met theirs, one by one. The priest stepped back. I stepped forward. The silence cracked like glass. "I heard I died," I said, voice steady, clear. "But I'm here now, and I'm ready to tell the real story." The room didn't move. No one dared to. And for the first time they listened. Because the dead girl had walked in, and she wasn't staying quiet anymore. Gasps rippled through the congregation like thunder in a sealed room. People turned slowly, as if their minds couldn't catch up with what their eyes were telling them. I stood at the end of the aisle, framed by the doorway like a bad omen. A woman clutched her chest. Someone whispered a prayer. Another fumbled for their phone as if filming this might make it more believable. At the front, my mother swayed. Her face drained of color, lips trembling, fingers twitching like she didn't know whether to cross herself or reach out. Then she dropped. It was dramatic, deliberate, a collapse so controlled it could have been choreographed. Her head landed gently against my father's shoulder. Her lace glove fell to the floor like a fallen petal. He didn't catch her. He was too busy staring at me. His wineglass slipped from his hand and shattered against the marble, the red liquid spreading like blood beneath his feet. Still, he said nothing. His mouth opened once, then again, but no words came. Only silence, the kind that screams. Elena froze, her hand clenched around her pearls, breath shallow and uneven, her eyes locked on mine, wide, wild, desperate. I didn't look away, not this time. The priest stepped back, nearly stumbling over his own robe. This can't be," he stammered, voice brittle with disbelief. But I was real. My coat hung heavy from the rain, my breath was warm in the cold air, my feet ached from the heels I hadn't worn in years, and still I stood tall. No one dared to move, because I wasn't supposed to exist. I wasn't supposed to come back. I looked up at my photo above the altar, the smiling girl surrounded by flowers and soft lighting. She looked so peaceful, so perfectly, tragically gone. But I wasn't her, not anymore. I was the consequence, and I was alive. A little boy in the second row tugged on his mother's sleeve and asked, too loudly, "Mom, why is the dead lady talking?" She didn't answer. She was too busy staring, knuckles white around her prayer book. I stepped forward, just once. The sound of my heel echoed through the church like a gunshot. Then again, and again, until I was halfway down the aisle, staring into a sea of faces that had all, at some point, decided to forget me. Let them watch. Let them wonder, because the girl they buried had just walked back into the room. And this time, she wasn't here for their grief. She was here for the truth. I stepped onto the altar like I'd been invited. The hush was absolute. No organ, no coughs, no rustling coats, just the heavy collective breath of people caught between disbelief and guilt. My heels clicked against the stone as I turned to face them all, the faces that once belonged to holidays and home videos and forced smiles. Now they looked at me like I was something risen, a mistake come to life. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the folder, thick, creased, stuffed with pages I'd memorized in the dark. I laid it down on the podium where my father had once stood and declared me a complicated girl. I cleared my throat. "These are my passport stamps," I said, voice sharp and steady. "Lisbon, Marseille, Utrecht. I've been alive, working, filing taxes, paying rent. These are my employment contracts, my leases, my tax returns, government sealed, dated, signed." I flipped each page like a drumbeat. They told you I died, that I was in a car crash abroad, that there wasn't enough left of me for a real funeral. I held up the death certificate, folded once, then twice, and now trembling slightly in my hand. They filed this 6 months after cutting me off, after transferring my trust fund to Elena, after locking me out of everything. I looked straight at her. She didn't blink, didn't speak. Her pearls were still clenched in her fist like they might shatter too. "I was alive. I am alive, and they buried me anyway." Murmurs stirred in the pews. Someone gasped audibly. Another person whispered, "She has proof." I turned to my parents, who hadn't moved. My mother's face was frozen, paper white, her mouth twisted in some failing performance of faint dignity. My father just stared at the folder like it might catch fire. "You didn't lose a daughter," I said. "You discarded her. You made me dead on paper so you could rewrite the story. So she," I gestured toward Elena, "could have it all without a shadow." No one spoke. No one had to, because the truth had already filled the room. "You lied," I said, softer now, "and I let it happen for too long, but not anymore." I took one last look at the altar, the candles, the photo they'd framed like a tombstone. "I'm not the one who should be buried." And I walked away. This time not as a ghost, but as the truth they never saw coming. At first it was just one phone. A teenager near the back, hand trembling as the red recording light blinked. Then another. A woman in the third row, holding her phone just below her chin, too stunned to even pretend it wasn't happening. One by one, they lifted their devices like mirrors, like shields, like proof that what they were seeing was real. And then the murmurs started. Not quiet ones. Loud, sharp, disbelieving. "She has documents. Did you see the dates? She's alive. They said she was dead." I didn't look at the cameras. I didn't have to. The room was doing the work for me now. Eyes darted, Hands covered mouths. Whispers turned into accusations, confusion into clarity. I saw someone pull out their phone and scroll, probably back to Elena's wedding photos. Another flipped through old messages, searching for memories that suddenly felt fraudulent. Behind me, my mother sat frozen in her front row seat, eyes locked forward as if still clinging to some imagined script. My father had sunk lower into the pew, jaw tight, eyes glazed. He looked like a man watching his house burn while holding the matches. And Elena, she was still standing, but barely. Her face had gone pale, lips tight with panic, hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on each phone like they were knives. She knew. She knew this couldn't be undone. Not this time. "Stop filming," she snapped, voice too high, too late. No one listened. Because the performance was over, and the audience had turned. I stepped down from the altar, folder still in hand. Someone reached out to touch me, lightly, like to confirm I wasn't a trick of light and grief. I nodded at her, kept walking. The doors at the back of the church stood open, and beyond them, the world was waiting. Let them share it. Let them post it. Let them ask the questions my family had tried so hard to silence. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a resurrection. And the funeral they had orchestrated so perfectly had become their own. A funeral for every lie, every forged paper, every fake tear. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I could still hear Elena's voice behind me, shrill and cracking. "She's lying! She's dangerous! She's doing this to hurt us!" But no one followed me. No one stopped me. They'd seen too much. And now, so would everyone else. The paper was thicker than I expected. Official. Embossed. Stamped with more authority than any lie my family had ever told. The lawyer slid it across the desk with a quiet, almost reverent gesture, like handing me a name I had fought to keep. Revocation of death. Declaration. Maya Dekwa. It didn't feel like triumph. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like breath. Like stepping out from underwater after holding it too long. I signed at the bottom, and just like that, I became real again. Not a ghost, not a memory, not a whispered tragedy tucked into a funeral speech. Alive, legally, unquestionably. Willem, the lawyer, nodded once. "We've submitted formal complaints to the Financial Authority and Civil Registry. The criminal investigation will follow." "Good," I said, voice flat. "Let them explain it under oath." The trust fund, the false certificate, the embezzlement, all of it was documented now, locked in files that couldn't be buried. If they wanted silence, they had picked the wrong grave. But this wasn't about punishment, not anymore. It was about escape, about peeling off the version of me they had created and walking into the world without needing to ask for permission. I didn't go back to the apartment right away. I walked instead, down the old streets, through the city I had made my refuge. It was raining again, soft and persistent, soaking into my coat, my skin, my bones. But I didn't rush. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I passed a bakery where I used to sit alone in the mornings, nursing cheap coffee and the ache of being forgotten. The girl behind the counter didn't recognize me. That used to sting. Now it felt like freedom. They would face the consequences, maybe not all at once, maybe not loudly, but the wheels were already turning. Every lie they'd sewn with gold thread would unravel. Slow, public, irreversible. And I wouldn't be there to watch it. I didn't want their apologies. I didn't need them to say my name again. I had it back, and that was enough. I stopped at the edge of a canal, wind brushing my cheeks, the world wide and open before me. The phone buzzed in my pocket, an email from the registrar, confirmation of identity reinstatement. I let it buzz. I was done looking back. Let them keep their funerals and flowers and family dinners built on silence. Let them explain my resurrection to the people who believed their grief. I wasn't going home. I was making one, finally.